Why your new self feels so unfamiliar. There's a moment, after you decide to change something in your life, where everything feels slightly off. Not dramatically wrong, not chaotic or broken, just unfamiliar. You start thinking differently, responding differently, noticing things you didn't notice before. And instead of it feeling empowering, it feels uncomfortable. Almost like you've stepped into someone else's life. And if you're not careful in that moment, you'll assume something's gone wrong. You'll think, why does this feel so strange? Why don't I feel like myself anymore? What if I've made a mistake? But what if this isn't a mistake? What if this feeling is actually a sign that something is finally shifting? Because here's something most people aren't told when they start changing. Your self isn't fixed. It's learned, built, repeated, reinforced over time through experience, environment, and survival. The way you think, the way you react, the way you show up in relationships, none of that just appeared. It was shaped, conditioned, adapted, often without you even realizing it. From a psychological perspective, your brain is wired for one primary thing: familiarity over happiness. Not because it wants you to suffer, but because familiar means predictable, and predictable means safe, even if that familiarity includes stress, people-pleasing, overthinking, or staying in situations that don't feel right anymore. If it's known, your brain will try to keep you there. So when you start to change, even in small ways, your brain doesn't immediately celebrate. It questions, it resists, it sends signals that something is off. Not because the change is wrong, but because it's new. And that's where most people turn back. Not because they can't change, but because they misunderstand what change feels like. They expect growth to feel like clarity, like confidence, like stepping into something that immediately feels right. But real change, especially internal change, often feels like disorientation first. Think about it like this. If you've spent years responding to life in a certain way, saying yes when you mean no, putting others before yourself, staying quiet to keep the peace, that becomes your baseline, your identity, your normal. So when you start doing something different, even something healthier, like setting a boundary, or pausing before reacting, or choosing yourself in a small moment, it doesn't feel natural. It feels foreign, almost like you're acting, like you're trying on a version of yourself that doesn't quite fit yet. And that feeling, that's not failure. That's neuroplasticity in motion. Your brain is literally adjusting to a new pattern, breaking old neural pathways and beginning to form new ones. But that process takes time, repetition, patience. And in the early stages, it often feels like you're caught between two versions of yourself. The old one, that knows exactly how to navigate every situation. And the new one, that's still learning, still uncertain, still finding its footing. That in-between space is where most people give up, because it's uncomfortable, because it feels unstable, because the old version of you feels easier, more automatic, more certain. But here's the truth. The old version only feels easier because you've practiced it longer, not because it's better. And the new version? It feels unfamiliar because it's honest, because it's not built on adaptation, but on awareness. This is where psychology and lived experience meet, because when you begin to act from awareness instead of habit, you interrupt patterns that may have been running for years, patterns rooted in early experiences, emotional conditioning, social expectations, survival strategies. And when those patterns are interrupted, your system doesn't immediately relax. It recalibrates. Your nervous system, which has learned to associate certain behaviors with safety, suddenly doesn't have the same reference points. So it sends signals. This feels wrong. This feels unsafe. Go back to what you know. But what it's really saying is, this is new. I don't recognize this yet. There's a difference. And understanding that difference can change everything. Because instead of interpreting that discomfort as a sign to stop, you can begin to see it as a sign that you're stepping outside of what you've always known. And that's where growth actually happens. Not in the moment everything feels perfect, but in the moment you stay with something that feels unfamiliar, long enough for it to become your new normal. This is also why people sometimes say, "I don't feel like myself anymore." And they mean it in a negative way. But what they're really experiencing is this. They're no longer operating from a version of themselves that was built around survival, but they haven't fully integrated the version that's built around choice, so they feel disconnected. Not because they've lost themselves, but because they're meeting themselves differently, and that takes time. There's also something else happening here, something quieter, but just as important. When you begin to change, you don't just lose old habits, you also begin to lose old roles. The reliable one, the fixer, the one who always says yes, the one who keeps everything together. These roles, they become part of how people relate to you and part of how you see yourself. So when those roles begin to shift, there can be a subtle sense of loss, even if those roles were exhausting, even if they no longer fit. Because identity isn't just internal, it's relational. It exists in how you see yourself and how others respond to you. So as you change, there may be moments where things feel unclear, where interactions feel different, where you're not quite sure how to respond. And again, that doesn't mean something is wrong. It means something is changing. This is why the transition into your new self isn't a single moment. It's a process, a gradual unfolding. And in that process, there are going to be moments where you feel unsure, slower to respond, less reactive, more aware, slightly disconnected from your old patterns, and all of that is part of it. So if you're in that space right now, where things feel unfamiliar, where you're not quite sure who you are in certain moments anymore, where your old reactions don't feel right, but your new ones don't feel natural yet. You're not doing it wrong. You're in the middle of it. And the most important thing you can do here is not rush to feel like yourself again, because the version of you that felt automatic was built on repetition. Give this version of you time to become familiar. Through small, consistent choices. Through moments where you pause instead of react. Through moments where you listen instead of override. That's how identity shifts, not through one big change, but through repeated moments of choosing differently and slowly, almost without noticing. What once felt unfamiliar begins to feel natural. You start to trust your responses. You start to recognize your patterns earlier. You start to feel more grounded. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer moving through life on autopilot. And one day, you'll look back and realize that the version of you that once felt unfamiliar is now the one that feels like home. If this resonated with you, leave a comment and let me know if you've ever felt that moment where you don't quite recognize yourself anymore. And if you're in that transition right now, you're not alone in it. Like and subscribe if you're ready to keep exploring this together. As always, this has been Valkyrie. Thanks for stopping by. Until next time, be kind to yourself and others. Lanterns up, people.